If you've ever stood in front of your fridge or your pantry and thought, I don't have what I need to make for dinner, I know how tempting it can be to run out for just one thing. But what if you didn't? Over the past few weeks, I've been doing a $10 grocery budget challenge where I'm only allowed to spend $10 at the grocery store on perishables. No running out to the stores for just that one thing, but getting creative, getting resourceful, and using what I already have. So in this video, I'm going to share with you 5 recipes from a cabbage soup to a cozy chicken pot pie with a biscuit crust to a lemon chicken Orzo soup with a lovely fresh flavor and more. I'll walk you through each recipe and the biggest lessons I've learned about cooking on a tight budget and getting truly creative with using what I have. Let's get it started. Sometimes the best meals start with a surprise. A friend gifted me a huge coleslaw kit, basically a generous bag of chopped cabbage, and I knew right away what I'd make, our family's favorite cabbage soup. To keep things simple, I gathered everything I need into a large basket, minus the spices. I pulled those from the pantry as I cooked. One by one, I unpacked the essentials: the coleslaw kit, a few carrots, a couple of potatoes, 1 onion, 2 cans of Great Northern beans, and some garlic. I started by giving all the veggies a good scrub under running water. Then I peeled the carrots and gave the onions and garlic a rough chop. I poured a couple of tablespoons of olive oil into a Dutch oven and dropped in the potatoes. I let them soften and brown just a bit, seasoning with salt and pepper. Next came the carrots, onions, and celery, sauteed until tender. Then I added a few of my go-to soup spices: thyme, oregano, and black pepper, followed by the garlic, which I cooked just until fragrant. A splash of lemon juice, 2 cans of petite diced tomatoes, and 5 cups of homemade chicken broth rounded out the base. I stirred in about 4 cups of the chopped cabbage and let it all simmer until the cabbage was tender and everything was smelling amazing. The result? A warm, hearty bowl of cabbage soup, full of flavor, easy to make, and perfect for a weeknight dinner. You can serve it with cornbread muffins, crusty bread, or just a handful of crackers. Either way, it's a delicious, nutritious, and cozy meal on a budget. I've been trying to do a better job of using my free meals, so today's lunch is going to be a chicken pot pie. So I grabbed the filling out of the freezer and popped it in the microwave just to take a little bit of the chill off. And typically when you put topping on a pot pie, the filling is already hot. And then I put it in the oven. So I'm going to let it sit in the oven until it warms up, and then I'll put the topping on. And I'm going to use these canned biscuits as my topping today. Their best by date is hard upon me, so I'm going to use those instead of rolling out a pie crust. I rolled the biscuits out just a bit flatter and used a small biscuit cutter to turn them into mini rounds. Half of the can went right on top of the hot pot pie filling, and the other half I baked off in a separate pan for later. Once the biscuit top pie had baked for about 20 minutes, I pulled it from the oven and gave those golden tops a quick brush of melted butter. To keep things fresh, I picked a few salad greens from my garden salad bowl that I had growing on the front porch. I rinsed them, spun them dry, and added some sliced tomato. That simple salad was the perfect side dish for the chicken pot pie. In the end, it was a cozy, satisfying meal, and it reminded me how handy it is to tuck away freezer meals when time allows. This one was quick, budget-friendly, and didn't require much more than a warm oven and a few pantry staples. Next up, pork chops in the air fryer. This meal came together thanks to a little freezer planning and a good air fryer. I started by pulling a few things ahead of time. Some leftover collard greens from a Sunday dinner, a home chef scalloped potatoes side dish that had been tucked away far too long, and a pack of pork chops. I added them all to a container in the fridge the night before so they'd be thawed out and ready to go the next day. To season the pork chops, I made a quick rub with brown sugar, paprika, salt and pepper, onion powder, garlic powder, and a bit of mustard powder. After patting the chops dry, I brushed them with some olive oil. Press them into the seasoning mix and place them in the air fryer. The scalloped potatoes went into the microwave following the package directions, and the same with the collard greens. I just heated them through until warm and tender. They cooked up beautifully, just 6 minutes per side at 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and I made sure to check the internal temperature with a meat thermometer to hit that 140 degrees Fahrenheit mark. The real win? Using up freezer leftovers before they're forgotten. Those odds and ends, like the greens and potatoes, can be perfect side dishes when you know what's in your freezer and you do a little meal planning. This video is brought to you by Aprondiva. Pretty and practical, we believe that an apron can be a homemaker's best accessory. Visit us at www.aprondiva.com. This lemon chicken orzo soup came together thanks to a little evening prep and a container packed with everything I needed. A half of a rotisserie chicken, a few veggies, a lonely lemon, and some orzo pasta that had been sitting in the pantry for over a year. This container system has been a game changer. Just pulling everything together the night before makes getting dinner on the table so much easier. I started with the usual trio: onion, carrot, and celery. Peeled and chopped with the scraps saved to make broth later. I sauteed the vegetables in olive oil, added garlic, thyme, oregano, and salt and pepper. Then poured in several quarts of homemade chicken broth and tucked in a couple of bay leaves. While that simmered, I pulled the chicken from the bone and set it aside. Then I clipped a handful of kale from the patio garden as a stand-in for spinach. Rinsed it, chopped it, and dropped it into the pot. I boiled the orzo in a separate pot, then stirred it into the soup, along with the chicken, some lemon zest, and the juice from a very tired lemon that still had a little life in it. Served with crusty bread, this soup was fresh, filling, and just what the evening needed. The best part, I used what I had. Pantry orzo, garden kale, a freezer container of broth, and a lemon on its last leg. No need to run to the store, just a bit of planning and a willingness to make swaps when needed. So for today's budget-friendly meal that I am making from my Four Corners pantry, I am making Salisbury steak. I don't know, I was hearing somebody talk about Salisbury steak recently and I thought, oh, my mom used to make that for us all the time when we were kids, and I used to make it for my children. So I thought, let me just make it for me and hubby and just see how it works out. So the things that I need for it is 1 pound of ground beef, and I did get this from my freezer. The other thing that I needed to make this is mushrooms, and I had already used the mushrooms that I had in the fridge. So I need to come up with a substitute. And so when I Googled what I can swap out for mushrooms, one of the things that came up was lentils. And from what I understand, these kind of light colored lentils here, when they cook up, they'll cook up a little bit softer than these black lentils. So I thought the combination of the two would give me just enough texture that would simulate mushrooms, because this is one of the swaps you could do for mushrooms. The other thing that I need for this is Worcestershire sauce, which I am out of. I guess I used the last of it and didn't replace it. So one of the things that I can replace that with is balsamic vinegar or soy sauce. Well, the recipe already calls for soy sauce, so rather than adding double soy sauce, I'm going to replace the Worcestershire sauce with some balsamic vinegar. And then I also needed breadcrumbs, and I made breadcrumbs a couple of weeks ago. I had some leftover bread and I ground it up in my food processor, and then I keep it in the freezer. And I keep it in the freezer because there's no preservatives in it. It's not like purchased breadcrumbs that will have some kind of a preservative in it to keep it shelf stable. So I'm using breadcrumbs that I made myself that I had in the freezer. And I'm going to serve it with potatoes, and then the gravy that comes with it requires onion, which I also happen to have here. And I guess I should mention that the mushrooms are going to be part of the gravy, so there's that. And then the other thing that I need for the Salisbury steak is 1 large egg. So I've got everything that I need right here. Potatoes, goodies, and then I'll have other pantry items like salt, pepper, ketchup, those kind of things that are either in my fridge, my freezer, my pantry, or my extended pantry. So let's get it started. So I'll add my ground beef to the bowl, my beaten egg, half a cup of breadcrumbs, 2 tablespoons of ketchup, and it calls for 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce, which I don't have. And I'm subbing that out with 1 tablespoon of balsamic vinegar, 1 teaspoon of soy sauce, a teaspoon of dry mustard, half a teaspoon of pepper. So now let's get that mixed up. Now you can mix this up with a fork, you could use some kind of a masher, or you could just use your hands, and I am choosing to use my hands. And you could wear gloves or not. You could wash your hands really well and then just use your hands to mix this up. But I thought I would just use a glove. It's just a lot easier to do it this way. And then when I'm done, I can just peel the glove off, give my hands a quick wash, and I'm good to go. And I make sure to have all my other ingredients that I needed out so that I could just add it all in and not have to worry about touching the containers and then getting some cross-contamination. Okay, this looks like it's being mixed up pretty good. So I'm going to just make it one big ball here in the bowl. I can now take this glove off and dispose of it. And since I'm out of plastic wrap, I'm just going to cover it with this aluminum foil. And let it sit in the fridge for 2 hours. With the meat mixture in the fridge to rest, I moved on to prepping the lentils. I sorted through them to check for any debris, gave them a good rinse, and then set them on the cooktop to simmer. Next, I got the potatoes going for mashed potatoes. I washed, peeled, and chopped them into even pieces. Then I boiled them in a pot of salted water. So while the potatoes boil to get ready for the mashed potatoes, and the lentils appear to be nice and tender, I'll get them drained and get ready to make the gravy. So the first thing I'm going to do is melt this butter. And since I don't have mushrooms, I am using my lentils. And so now that the butter is melted, I'll add the onion, and once the onions are translucent, I'll add the lentils. And we'll add the lentils, a little salt. These lentils is giving this dish a mushroom look already. Now we're going to add 2 tablespoons of flour and give that a good stir to cook off the flour. And then we'll add 3 cups of beef broth to make the gravy. And we'll let that simmer until it thickens. So tell me those aren't mushrooms. And one thing this pantry challenge has forced me to do is think outside the box. I don't think I would have considered subbing the mushrooms for the lentils if I wasn't on this challenge. Since I couldn't run out to get any or send hubby out to get any, I had to figure it out. So now I'm going to add 3 cups of beef broth. Give that a little stir. 2 tablespoons of ketchup and 1 tablespoon of balsamic vinegar in place of Worcestershire sauce. It's got a nice rich brown color. I'm loving that. I'm just going to give this sauce a taste to see if I need to add any more seasonings. It's got great flavor. So now I'm just going to let this simmer for a bit and thicken until we've got our gravy. In the meantime, I believe the potatoes are fork tender, so I'll get them out and get the mashed potatoes made. So I need some chives to sprinkle on the top of my mashed potatoes, so I went out and picked some. So let me just put it in the salad spinner and just let it dry off just a little bit. Okay, water's off of them. I can just chop them up and they'll be ready. And let me just check my gravy. It's looking pretty good. So I'm going to turn it off until I'm ready to set the burgers in them. I'm going to put the chives in this little dish and set them aside. And now I'm going to pull out my KitchenAid, and look how easy this is for me to pull out and move. I got this little stand or platform to sit it on, and it just makes it so much easier to move. I'll link it in the description box below just in case you're interested in taking a look at it. But it just makes it so much easier to move because, you know, these puppies are heavy. Okay, let's get these potatoes in. And these mashed potatoes is a really, really simple recipe. Just really simple. Notice I made sure to unplug it before I put the beater in. I'm going to add some softened butter. I'm going to add a little garlic powder. Some more milk. A little salt. And a little pepper. Okay, let me take a look at it and give it a taste. So, looks pretty good. And I don't want to mix it too long because I don't want to turn it to glue. So, it could use a little more salt. I think I'll put a little of Miss Naomi's house seasoning in it. Okay, so now the mashed potatoes are done. I just need to get them in the bowl and get my riblets of butter on the top. But these will be great with gravy and the Salisbury steak. So I like to put little rivulets around the top of the mashed potatoes. And then I just pour melted butter all around the top. And then I can sprinkle just a little bit of chives on top. There. So now the mashed potatoes are ready and I can set them in the oven to stay warm while I finish up the steaks. The gravy looks absolutely amazing. I'm going to pour it into this pitcher. And I'll set it aside. Then I'll put 2 tablespoons of butter in the skillet in preparation for cooking the Salisbury steak. So now I am going to divide the meat into 4 equal portions, make little patties out of them, sprinkle them with a little salt and pepper on each side. Now I'm going to move it over to the stove and pop them in the skillet. Now I'm going to let these steaks cook for about 3 to 5 minutes on each side until they're no longer pink in the center. And then I'll add the gravy back to the skillet and then I'll let them simmer in that delicious gravy. Now one of the things we've been doing throughout this challenge is coming up with creative ways to stretch our dollar, to use our pantry. And one of the ideas that was mentioned was to save potato water. And as soon as I poured that water out to the sink, I was like, oh, that was one of the tips that Miss Leona gave. And I could have saved that potato water for the next time I make soup or stew. So I'll try to make sure I remember that better next time. So what are some ideas that you've come up with on how to be creative during your pantry challenge? Let us know in the comment section. Once they were beautifully browned, I poured the gravy over the top and let everything simmer until the gravy was hot and bubbling and the patties were fully cooked through. I checked the internal temperature. It was about 160 degrees Fahrenheit, so they were good to go. Time to plate. I pulled the mashed potatoes from the oven where they've been staying warm. I added a scoop to the plate along with some green beans I cooked off camera and topped it off with one of those gorgeous Salisbury steaks and a ladle full of gravy. I handed hubby his plate, then I made a plate for myself. I took that first bite of steak, mashed potatoes, and a little gravy, and let's just say, oh my goodness. This challenge reminded me of so many things, and I've got my notes right here just so I don't forget anything. But probably the thing that I learned most was the importance of checking my shelves before I shop. The other thing that I learned was to rotate out those items on my pantry shelf as well as in my freezer. Those things that I haven't touched for a while, or those things that need to be used up. And also giving those freezer meals a second look. It doesn't do me any good to prepare a freezer meal if I never circle back and actually use it. And one of the other lessons learned that I really enjoyed was learning to be more creative. For example, when I made the Salisbury steak, I learned I didn't really need mushrooms. I could use the lentils. And my husband was like, babe, this is the best meal you've ever made. And who knew that you could switch out mushrooms for lentils and the meal didn't miss a beat? So that was something that was really important to me, was that I learned to be more creative. I also realized how important it is to have a well-stocked pantry. This is what allowed me to be able to swap out some of the things that I did. And many of the comments that we got back from some of the participants was that their pantries weren't quite up to par, so it was difficult for them to work within a certain guideline. If you don't have a well-stocked pantry, let me encourage you to begin to build one right now, little by little, but let's build that pantry so that should the day come when there is a challenge, either one that we're doing on YouTube or a challenge from Life Be Lifin', that you're able to meet that challenge without too much trouble. So what would I do differently? Well, if I was to do this again, I would plan the meals out for a full month. I tend to plan my meals out either weekly or for a 2-week period of time. But if I was going to do a challenge such as this again, I would plan my meals out for the entire month. That way I would know what I needed for each meal, and I could make my shopping list accordingly. And I would also do a better job of not only planning out the freezer meals, but planning when I was going to use those freezer meals. And I would also keep track of what worked and what didn't work in my kitchen notebook. That way I would know what recipes that I definitely did not want to try again, and then what were some of the recipes that I do want to put back on the list. And I would definitely plan some desserts, something to have with Sunday dinner, and maybe something to have midweek, because budget or not, I need to have my sweets. And I don't know if you're the same way. Let me know in the comment section below. So now I want to hear from you. What's the most creative meal you made during this challenge process? Or did you find a pantry item that you thought, I need to use this, so let's get it on the list for the next couple of weeks? So comment below, and I would love to know about your lessons learned. What are you going to do differently, and what are you going to keep doing? So if you found this video helpful, check out this video next, and I'll see you over there.